Welcome and thank you so much for joining me for another edition of the Paddock Press Report. I'm Timothy Lateau. A lot of great racing this past weekend from Saratoga to Washington State to Toronto. We'll get to all that in just a few moments. But first, an interview with fan favorite Wayne Catalano, successful trainer, former jockey. He's had a lot of success in Illinois over the years, as well as Louisiana and Kentucky, of course, as well as Saratoga just a few weeks ago in the Vanderbilt Stakes with Built. Uh, Great 3-year-old last year, now sprinting this year. We talk about that in the interview, as well as his thoughts on the closure of Hawthorne Racecourse, and also his thoughts on the change to the Triple Crown. Well, it is such an honor to be joined by Wayne Catalano, fantastic trainer, former jockey. A lot of big wins in your career, Wayne. I know Built just had a big win at Saratoga and the Vanderbilt just a couple of weeks ago, sprinting. He's now had quite a successful season, a couple of stakes wins there. How's Built been doing since then?
Oh, he's doing great. We're looking forward to getting him in some more big races, and hopefully we run somewhere like September the 12th or whatever it is here at Churchill.
Yeah. I know, this year cutting back to some sprint distances, it seems like he's really turned the corner. Has that been kind of the biggest factor in his improved success, or is he just kind of matured as well as a 4-year-old? What's kind of turned the page for him?
Well, it looks like he got a little matured, and it looks like cutting him back to sprinting. That's kind of what his calling was. He should have done some good races doing these sprinting. So it looks like we found his niche.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Kind of best case scenario. If he continues on with this success and these, great performances, what do you think the rest of the year could look like from? Could he go to the Breeders' Cup Sprint or Dirt Mile, or what are your thoughts about that?
It would probably be Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Sure, yeah, yeah. I know that was a race you won just a few years ago with Aloha West, not too long ago.
That's, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that one.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Any other kind of stable stars or up and coming horses you wanted to shout out?
Now we got a couple of young horses that we hoping that they can be the ones we're looking for. We got a horse called Kamasa. Life is good coat that we think is, this hope he's promising, and a few other ones along the way. We had a little homebred at Fairmount Park. She won 4 in a row. Last of the Illinois breds.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and talking about Illinois breds and what's going to happen with that program too. Obviously, Hawthorne now is closed, and there's still things playing out in court. I know that they applied for racing dates for next year in 2027. I saw that headline. They applied for dates with the Illinois Racing Board. What are your thoughts, kind of on just how Hawthorne kind of ended and how that all kind of unfolded these last couple of months for Hawthorne?
Well, it seemed like they in chaos. That somebody don't know what they doing. Whoever's running that operation kind of dropped the ball. Uh, kind of got mixed up on what's going on, and let it slip away. And might have got too far away from them.
Yeah, yeah. What's the impact on that closure been like for you in your operation?
Well, when they closed Arlington Park, and it started looking bleak, we moved half of the stable to Kentucky, and that was like, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, something like that. We seen the handwriting on the wall. Arlington Park was home for us for 30 years or so, and '83 I started training. Was at Arlington, was 20 minutes from my little farm in Elgin that we raised these babies on, and it was great. And obviously, we had great success and good people and good clients, and horses and the help and everything that we had going on there was clicking beautiful, and family was happy, the wife's happy, happy life. But we had to move on. Now we are happy here in Kentucky. We got a nice little farm here in Simpsonville, and things are good. We got the 4 grandkids close by, so we're gonna make do.
Sure, yeah. I know you talked about kind of the you're not gonna have as many Illinois breds. Will you have any, or do you think, Fairmount Park, I know that's St. Louis, it's four plus hours away. Will you race there at all, or do you think it'll really focus on Kentucky more now?
Well, we just got them two Illinois breds that we run. Like I said, Motown Renee, she just won 4 in a row at Fairmont. So, and we got one other little one, a little Sawyer Fox, but they don't have grass for him there. So That's the only two. The other one is going to be Kentucky bred by Aloha West.
Yeah. I know Motown Renee for all the Illinois racing fans. Yeah, it's been fun to watch her string all those wins in a row. Tell me about the story behind her name.
Well, so she's by Motown, and my wife is from Michigan, Motown City, and whatever they call that, and Detroit. Is a Motown, and the mama's name is Renee Shelby Renee, so we named them Motown Renee.
Yeah, I love the combination in the O tier
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
I know this week too there was the big headline of first the Thoroughbred Championship Series was announced, kind of a combination of six races between Churchill Downs and the New York Racing Association. And then 2 days after that, the Preakness Stakes got moved back. It was announced by the Maryland Jockey Club, got moved back a week to a Sunday. So there'd be, 3 weeks between the Derby and the Preakness. What are your thoughts kind of on that new,
Well,
new era for the Triple Crown?
yeah, well, it won't be the same. Obviously, it's hard to do. It's hard to win the Triple Crown. That's why they only had so many of them. With the spacing and the timing, the way they breed the horses now. A lot of them stallions they only run a handful of times and they become stallions. And I don't know if it's got health issues and pass it on to their siblings and stuff. But I don't know how that's working out. For making it so close to the races. But it takes a special horse to win the Triple Crown, and that's the whole idea. So moving it around and the times that, changing, I guess you have to go with it because times are changing. Horses are changing. They don't build them like they used to, just like cars and stuff. They don't build them like they used to.
Sure, yeah.
So,
With the six race series, from May to September, I know Churchill Downs and Naira, they're putting up a $5 million bonus for kind of the top eight horses who run, at least four times in those six races. Do you think that's going to increase, participation significantly in those six races?
well, I'm sure it's going to do something. I would say if I was calling the shots, I'd probably raise the Preakness to bring him in there. If they could have raised the Preakness before, the horse that won in the Derby going to the Preakness and get a bonus, which I think they did a few years back when Risen Star won it. I
Yeah,
think they had a bonus back then, something like that. But
yeah,
that
they'd be
might
the
help. If they give them the money, they'll come. You know, they won't care if it's 2 weeks. If you give an extra 2 million, they'd show up. Money talks, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. You think if you had, one of your 2-year-olds this year, makes the Derby next year, you think that you'd go into the Preakness 3 weeks later if the horse was ready?
I'm going to the Preakness. If my horse is ready, we'll make the Preakness. We
Yeah,
would go to the series at original, but hopefully I'd be blessed with a one like that.
yeah, right. Yeah, hopefully, yeah. What do you think about that spacing then from the Preakness to the Belmont? Because then currently, Dyer hasn't announced any adjustments or anything, but the spacing as it stands now is that there'd be 13 days only between the Preakness to the Belmont. You think any horse would be able to make that turnaround, or that any trainer would do that?
I would, I would say that what they would do it. Some trainers would do it. Not all trainers. It all depends on the horse. I'm a big believer that we listen to the horse first. If the horses can do it, there's a difference. If your horse is able to run and can handle it, we'd probably do it. But it's all up to the horse and how he takes it.
Sure, yeah. How are your 2-year-olds looking so far this year? You think that any, will make the Derby Trail as a 2-year-old, or maybe next year's a 3-year-old?
Yes, we like I said, Kamasa. I'm looking forward to that horse. At the moment, we got a couple other ones, but Kamasa looks like if we can keep him going with the promise that he's showing, that maybe we'll have one next year for the 3-year races.
Sure, yeah, yeah. I know you had built on the kind of the Louisiana Derby trail last out in 2020 that was. Do you think that you'd take him to Louisiana again, or do you think you'd go with a different state's trail?
No, he'll be in Louisiana because Mr. Keith owns him. He's a resident of Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, Wayne, I really appreciate your time. Best of luck with Camasso, and I know Hawthorne closing two is certainly not an easy thing. Yeah, just best of luck in Kentucky and finishing out the year, and we hope to see Built in the Breeders' Cup.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Nice talking to you.
Well, our thanks to Wayne for his time. And now to some racing from this past weekend. Saratoga had the biggest race of this past weekend, the Grade 1 Christophe Clement Stakes, formerly known as the Sword Dancer, a horse that Christophe Clement trained. And this race was renamed in his honor just over a year since he passed away. He was also inducted into the Racing Hall of Fame just a couple weeks ago as well. And his son, Miguel, had Tawnyport in the race coming off of his Belmont Gold Cup win. Tawnyport, though, did not fire quite as well. And it was, in fact, a filly beating the boys on a 13-day turnaround Servy for trainer George Bowie. After winning the Glen Falls, she came back and won the Christophe Clement. And then Minaret Station and Program Trading ended up second and third in that race. And according to Bowie, Servia will likely train up to the Breeders' Cup. She may have one start before then, but otherwise, it could be just a straight train up to the Breeders' Cup. No prep races needed for Servy. She got plenty of racing in this summer with those back-to-back graded stakes. Now a Grade 1 stakes win. Up to Canada now. Toronto Woodbine Racetrack had the oldest continuously run race in North America, the King's Plate for Canadian breds, mile and a quarter on the synthetic track there. And another filly, some success against the boys, Luster. Luster won the Woodbine Oaks last out, and this filly went off as the heaviest bet favorite since 1992 in the King's Plate. Luster was 1-5, and she certainly looked like that in the stretch underneath John Velasquez. She won by 7 lengths for trainer Josie Carroll. And Military Time was second. Fire and Wine was third. Now, the Canadian Triple Crown has the King's Plate and the Prince of Wales's Stakes at a mile and 3/16 on the dirt at Fort Erie Racetrack, back to a mile and a half in the Breeders' Stakes at Woodbine. All the races are restricted to Canadian breds, but Luster will likely not compete in the remaining leagues of the Triple Crown, according to trainer Josie Carroll. Luster doesn't take to the dirt, according to Carroll, and instead she will be running most likely in the Queen Elizabeth II Cup at Keeneland. That's in October, mid-October, Grade 1 race, $600,000 purse there. Pretty lucrative spot for her. And that's the most likely route for Luster. She has only had one loss in her career. That was her first start on the synthetic. She's already won on Keeneland's turf back in the springtime earlier underneath John Velasquez. And he said he'll ride that filly anywhere. He knew good filly when he saw one. Now to Washington State. The Long Acres Mile has had 91 editions. And this past weekend, the Sunday race had a very exciting finish, tight finish, in which Touchy finished first over a big long shot, Adios Jojo, who was the pace setter, who narrowly lost by a nose on the wire. But then Steward's Inquiry came up, and Touchy ended up getting disqualified to second place for some bumping in the stretch. There wasn't a whole lot of bumping, but it certainly moved over Adios Jojo by a bit. It wasn't just a brush; it was a firm bump. The steward said that was enough to take down Touchy and to elevate Adios Jojo for the win in the Long Acres Mile. Long Acres Mile, of course, the biggest race in Washington State. Long Acres Racetrack no longer anymore, but the race still continued on and always attracts a lot of big horses there. Now to some retirements from the last couple of weeks. White Barrio was retired after finishing last in the Whitney Stakes. Bo Echo, and White Barrio, he is 7 years old. Bo Echo, 3-year-old horse, fantastic European horse, won the 2000 Guineas, highlighting this 3-year-old season. He was undefeated. He's been retired due to an injury that he sustained in training. He'll be okay. He'll go off to stud, but he retires undefeated and sadly early in his career. He's probably expected to end the year maybe running on Champions Day in October in England, or also maybe even in the Breeders' Cup Mile. We're going to see his display kind of on another level, taking on those other horses. But he's already beaten older horses and has, been a fantastic 3-year-old, one of the best in his crop for sure. He'll certainly go down as one of the greats. And then Trawlerman, Godolphin's long distance stayer, has also been retired. He had a tendon injury that he was found to have suffered last out in the Goodwood Cup, that narrow loss to Scandinavia in the Goodwood Cup after some interference in the stretch with a loose horse. Trawlerman, certainly one of Godolphin's most exciting horses, an 8-year-old gelding. He'll be retired, but a tendon injury prevents him from finishing out the rest of the racing year. Sad to see those horses go. I think that all those horses, even White Barrio, I had some potential in them. White Barrio obviously was a disappointing last out effort in the Whitney Stakes. He retired sound, but it would be nice to see those horses finish out the year, possibly see them in the Breeders' Cup or for Trawlerman, perhaps the Melbourne Cup, but not meant to be for those three. On to the breeding side of things. The Facing Tipton Saratoga sale a couple weeks ago now, headlined by a $4.2 million into mischief colt, was topping the sale, and he was bought by Flying Dutchman Racing. $4.2 million purchase. It was a record sale as well, kind of by all metrics that they use there, including the total money spent. So very successful sale, according to Boyd Browning, the director of the sale there. Nitrogen, the filly, 4-year-old filly, last year's champion 3-year-old filly. Mark Cassidy is saying she will have one race before the Breeders' Cup. It'll likely be in the Locust Grove Stakes, taking on fillies at Churchill Downs in September. He did not say, though, which race she'll run in the Breeders' Cup. He said it'll be on dirt. He didn't specify which one. So that kind of leaves the door open if she goes to the distaff, sticks with the fillies and mares. Could she go to the Classic? She just took on the boys in the Whitney and was very impressive, narrowly beaten by Sovereignty, leaving late in the stretch there. We know she can stretch out to a mile and a quarter as well after last year's Alabama. And otherwise, I don't think she would shorten up to the dirt mile, but Mark Cassidy didn't really elaborate on his comments. He just said, we'll see. We know it won't be a turf race, is what he had told some members of the media over the weekend. So Nitrogen, definitely one to watch. And it would be awesome if she tried the Classic. We know she can run at the boys, but otherwise, always an exciting filly, and it'll be great to see wherever she runs. That is kind of an interesting headline that came out about an owner, Marshall Graham, dealing with some HISA issues. HISA claims that Graham accessed confidential horse health information. Graham says that he got the information through his own HISA account as an owner. Owners have access to their horses' health data and medical history, things like that. But Graham is claiming that he used the HISA platform as himself, didn't log in any other way, didn't hack it, didn't do anything like that. It was just accessible information that he was able to get his hands on. And then he did post it on social media. He admitted to. He says that he will fight these charges that HISA is trying to levy against him. HISA says that there could be a number of disciplinary actions that take place, including a lifetime ban on owning racehorses. They didn't rule that out, according to Lisa Lazarus, HISA CEO. So I'm sure a lot more headlines to come with that and more further developments. We'll see what comes of the investigation into how Graham accessed that data and just kind of, how that plays out, what kind of repercussions he ends up facing, if any, and if there's anything more that Graham will say about the matter. But he said he did not act as anyone other than himself to be able to access information. But a couple of stakes runners is what it sounds like. Deterministic was one of them. Of course, Miguel Clement horse, Vinny Viola owned. So that was an interesting headline that kind of emerged on social media and grew to a bigger story. Graham, of course, is well known on social media. He's even a college professor at Rhodes College in Tennessee. So Graham is well known, kind of a statistician too, if you will, and great handicapper. Has a large following. So pretty interesting headline to see there. On to some weekend racing. A lot of several Grade 1 races this weekend, both stateside and internationally. We'll start with the Pacific Classic, $1 million race, mile and a quarter at Del Mar. Of course, the premier race of the summer for Del Mar. They've got a really great field of 11 horses set to line up here. One of the sentimental favorites might be Almond Joy. She's a 4-year-old filly, California bred, who's ran in some big races, put up some big efforts against Open Company this year, including a narrow loss in the Clement L. Hirsch Stakes last out. She was second in that. She wheels back in 3 weeks. She'll be a long shot here, though. The odds, as of this recording, have not come out yet. I'd imagine she'd be at least probably 20-1, though. Otherwise, one of the likely favorites is Forged Steel, who last out won the Hollywood Gold Cup at Santa Anita. That was back in early summer, rather. Then there's also Knightsbridge coming off of a win in the Monmouth Cup for trainer Bill Mott. Finger comes over from Japan. This is an interesting horse. Has had a lot of success on the dirt in Japan. We'll see what it's like taking on the Americans. Obviously, Forever Young has beaten some tough American horses as a Japanese-based horse. So we'll see. Finger can certainly not be ruled out, and he's had a successful year with a number of wins already this year. And there's Hit Show, Dubai World Cup winner. He's in the race. He ships out for Brad Cox. Hasn't won yet this year, but he's ran in some tough races. Besides the Dubai World Cup, he hit the board in his two other starts, both in stakes competition. And then Navajo Warrior on a three-race winning streak. Last out, he won the Cornhusker Handicap in Iowa, so he continues to trek his way to the west. And there is also the Grade 1 Delmar Oaks at Delmar. Kensington Lane just won the Belmont Oaks. She heads to the West Coast to try to expand on some Grade 1 opportunities there. Of course, next up in the series on the New York races is the Jockey Club Oaks. That'll be later on in September. It'd be interesting if she tried to race in both races. Otherwise, that one I don't believe is a Grade 1 race. So if they want to keep her in Grade 1 company, she ended up shipping coast to coast for that. Then there's Tam Tam, Phil Bauer and a Rigney-owned horse. Tam Tam, trained by Phil Bauer. He's the private trainer for Rigney. She comes off of a win last out in Kentucky in a stakes race, and then also in box a second last out in the Yellow Ribbon Handicap Grade 2 turf race there at Del Mar for Philip Tomato. So those are kind of the top three horses that I've looked at, just kind of looking who's coming off of a impressive performance. Kensington Lane and Tam Tam are the only two horses in the race coming off of stakes wins for one note. Out to Saratoga for their grade winners for the weekend. They've got the Alabama Stakes. Of course, one of the top 3-year-old fillies, and probably you can call her the top 3-year-old filly now for sure. And Counting Stars has now won her last two races, both at Saratoga. She beat Always a Runner, who defeated her in the Kentucky Oaks. And Counting Stars won the Acorn Stakes, and then after that, won the Coaching Club of American Oaks. She'll be the heavy favorite, I'm sure, in this field of six. AP's Girl coming off of a stakes placed effort, perhaps maybe the second choice. And Chad Brown and the owner of Always a Runner, they've got My Guns Loaded in the race. She's on a 2-race win streak after winning a maiden and then winning an allowance stakes race last out at Saratoga. So we know she likes Saratoga. See how she does there. And then that international race I was telling you about, the international stakes at York, a Group 1 race overseas in England, a 1.25-mile race, and a win in near for the British Cup Classic due to its 1.25-mile distance, even though it takes place on the turf. Ombudsman looking to defend his title, a 5-year-old Godolphin horse, will likely be the favorite there. But he's got some really tough adversaries in 3-year-olds. The first one that I want to mention, Constitution River, coming off of a win in the Prix du Jockey Club over in France, a Group 1 race for Aiden O'Brien. He's got certainly a tough resume there. Constitution River, that is a name to look out for. He's undefeated this year as a 3-year-old as well. Really been targeting some races over in France. And then Item, an undefeated horse as well until it came to the Epsom Derby. He lost that as the favorite, or as one of the favorites, along with Benvenuto Cellini. But Item has bounced back. He won the York Stakes last out at York. Prepared him well earlier on in July. So we know he likes the track, and we'll see how Item performs. Again, the only race that he ever lost was the Epsom Derby, so he'll be one to look out for as well. Those are the top three I think that you got to look out for in the international stakes on Wednesday. This is coming up on Wednesday. We'll see when this episode gets posted, but this is going to be taking place on Wednesday, August 19th. The international stakes 1.25 at York. Ombudsman, Constitution River, and Item, the big ones to look out for. And that's another edition of the Paddock Press Report. Enjoy the racing. Thanks so much for taking the time. Be sure to like, hype, subscribe, comment, whatever you feel like. Just so thankful that you take the time. For now, that's all. I'm Timothy Lateau. This has been the Paddock Press Report. Have a great day.